Life isn't what's happening to you. Life is what's happening through you. Jung discovered that everything you think you know about life is backwards. You're not living a life. Life is living you. You're not having experiences. You are the experience life is having of itself. After decades of studying thousands of lives, diving into the deepest layers of the human psyche, and confronting his own unconscious, Jung arrived at an explanation of life so profound that most people can't grasp it. Not because it's complex, but because it's so simple, it's terrifying. Today I'm going to share what Jung discovered life actually is, and once you understand this, you'll never be able to see your existence the same way again. Here's what Jung realized that changes everything. Life isn't a random series of events you're trying to survive. It's a precise psychological process with a specific purpose, and you're both the subject and the object of that process. Every person you meet, every situation you face, every joy and every tragedy, it's all part of a single movement. Life individuating through you. Consciousness becoming conscious of itself through your experience. This isn't philosophy or mysticism. It's what Jung observed empirically in thousands of patients. Life has a structure, a direction, a purpose. And once you see it, everything that seemed random suddenly makes perfect sense. Let me show you what life actually is. Life is not about what happens to you. Life is the process of making the unconscious conscious, and everything that happens is serving that process. Jung discovered that every human life follows the same fundamental pattern. You start completely unconscious, and life is the journey of becoming conscious. Not intellectually conscious, but psychologically conscious, aware of what's actually driving you, shaping you, living through you. Think about it. You're born physically conscious, but psychologically unconscious. You don't know who you are, why you're here, what forces are shaping your experience. You're like an actor who's forgotten they're in a play, thinking the drama is real. Then life starts happening, and every single thing that happens has one purpose: to make you conscious of what's unconscious. That traumatic childhood experience, it created an unconscious complex that will drive your behavior until you make it conscious. That person who triggers you, they're showing you an unconscious part of yourself. That recurring pattern, it's unconscious material demanding to become conscious. Jung saw this with every patient. Their lives weren't random collections of events. They were perfectly orchestrated processes of unconscious material becoming conscious. The alcoholic making conscious their pain. The workaholic making conscious their worth issues. The serial romantic making conscious their abandonment complex. Life is a consciousness-making machine, and you're both the raw material and the end product. But here's what's profound. This process isn't happening to you, it's happening as you. You're not a person having experiences that make you conscious. You are the process of consciousness becoming conscious of itself. Jung experienced this during his Red Book period. He realized he wasn't Carl Jung having visions. He was the process through which the collective unconscious was becoming conscious of itself. His life was life knowing itself through the lens of his particular existence. This completely reframes everything. Your problems aren't obstacles to life, they're life happening. Your suffering isn't meaningless, it's consciousness being born. Your confusion isn't failure, it's the unconscious becoming conscious, and birth is always messy. Every symptom is unconscious material trying to become conscious. Every dream is the unconscious communicating with consciousness. Every synchronicity is the unconscious becoming visible to consciousness. Every relationship is unconscious projection becoming conscious recognition. Life isn't something you're doing. Life is consciousness becoming conscious of itself through what you call your experience. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But he also discovered something deeper. Making the unconscious conscious isn't just something you do in life. It is life. It's what life is. You're not here to be happy, successful, or even good. You're here to become conscious. Everything else, all the drama, the seeking, the suffering, the joy, it's all just the mechanism through which consciousness emerges. You think you're living your life. You're not. Your life is a conversation between who you think you are and who you really are. Jung discovered that every human life is structured as a dialogue between two centers of consciousness: the ego, who you think you are, and the self, who you actually are in totality. Life is the conversation between these two, and you're experiencing that conversation as your existence. The ego is your conscious identity, your name, your story, your sense of being separate. It thinks it's running the show. It makes plans, sets goals, tries to control outcomes. It's the part that says, "I want, I think, I am." The self is the totality of your psyche, conscious and unconscious, personal and collective, human and beyond human. It's infinitely larger than your ego, infinitely wiser, and it has its own agenda for your life. Here's the brutal truth. These two are often in complete opposition. Your ego wants comfort. Your self wants growth. Your ego wants safety. Your self wants truth. Your ego wants to fit in. Your self wants to individuate. Your ego wants to avoid suffering. Your self knows suffering creates consciousness. And life, what you experience as your life, is the dynamic tension between these two forces. Every major event in your life is the self communicating with the ego. That crisis that shattered your plans, that's the self saying your ego's direction is too small. That unexpected opportunity, the self opening a door the ego didn't know existed. That loss that devastated you, the self removing what the ego clung to but needed to release. Jung saw this pattern in every life he studied. The first half of life, the ego is ascending, building identity, achieving goals, establishing itself. The second half, the self starts asserting itself, breaking down ego structures, demanding authenticity, pushing toward wholeness. The midlife crisis isn't a crisis. It's the self saying, "Enough with the ego's agenda. Time for the real work." But here's what's mind-blowing. This dialogue isn't a problem to solve. It is life. The tension between ego and self, the push and pull, the conflict and resolution, that's not interrupting your life. That's what life is. Jung experienced this intensely. His ego wanted to be a respectable Swiss psychiatrist. His self demanded he explore the unconscious, talk to invisible figures, build stone towers. The tension between these nearly drove him mad, until he realized the tension wasn't pathology. It was life happening. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop seeing difficulties as life going wrong and start seeing them as life going exactly right. The self is always trying to expand you beyond your ego's limitations. The ego is always trying to maintain control. This creative tension is what creates your life experience. That relationship that challenges everything you believe about yourself, that's the self using another person to show the ego its limitations. That failure that crushed your identity, the self destroying who you thought you were so who you really are can emerge. That dark night of the soul, the self withdrawing its projection from the ego's illusions. Life isn't you versus circumstances. Life is ego versus self, played out through circumstances. And you're not supposed to win this game. You're supposed to play it consciously. Here's what will shatter your reality. Your life isn't happening. It's being narrated. And you're both the storyteller and the audience. Jung discovered that humans don't experience raw reality. We experience reality through story, through narrative, through meaning making. And the story you're telling about your life is your life, psychologically speaking. Two people can have identical experiences and live completely different lives. Why? Because they're telling different stories about those experiences. One person's trauma becomes another's transformation. One person's loss becomes another's liberation. The events are the same. The stories, and therefore the lives, are completely different. But here's the deeper truth. You're not consciously choosing your story. Your unconscious is writing it based on patterns laid down before you could think. And you're living inside that story, thinking it's reality. Jung called these personal myths, the unconscious narratives that shape how you interpret everything. And everyone's living inside their own myth, usually without knowing it. The victim's myth. Life happens to me. The hero's myth. I must overcome everything. The martyr's myth. I must sacrifice for others. The exile's myth. I don't belong anywhere. The seeker's myth. The answer is out there somewhere. These aren't conscious choices. They're unconscious programs running your life from below awareness. Jung saw this with every patient. They'd come with their problem, but the real problem was the story they were telling about their life. Change the story, change the life. Not by positive thinking, by making the unconscious story conscious. He had a patient who lived the story. Everyone abandons me. And sure enough, everyone did. Not because it was fate, but because she was unconsciously creating that story over and over. She'd pick unavailable people. She'd push away available ones. She'd interpret normal distance as abandonment. She was the author, director, and star of her own abandonment story. When Jung helped her see the story, really see it, everything changed, not immediately in circumstances, but immediately in meaning. She realized she wasn't living life. She was living a story about life. And stories can be rewritten. But here's the truly profound part. Even knowing life is a story doesn't let you escape story. You can't live without narrative. You can only choose between unconscious myth and conscious myth, between being lived by your story or consciously participating in it. Jung himself recognized he was living a myth, the myth of individuation, the myth of the explorer of the unconscious. He knew it was a story, but he also knew that living consciously within a story is what makes life meaningful. This is why Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But who you truly are isn't a fixed thing. It's a story being told. And you can either be the unconscious character or the conscious co-author. Your life right now is a story your unconscious is telling. Every person in your life is a character serving that story. Every event is a plot point advancing that narrative. Every emotion is the story affecting its audience, you. The question isn't whether you're living a story. You are. The question is whether you know what story you're in. Life has exactly one purpose: to make you whole. Everything else, all your goals, dreams, plans, are either serving that purpose or resisting it. Jung called this process individuation, becoming an undivided individual, not perfect but complete, not improved but integrated, not better but whole. And this isn't something you do in life. This is life. Every single experience you have is life individuating you. Every person you meet is helping you individuate. Every joy expands you toward wholeness. Every suffering breaks what prevents wholeness. Everything is conspiring to make you complete. But here's what most people don't understand. Individuation isn't adding things to yourself. It's including what you've excluded. It's integrating what you've rejected. It's becoming what you already are but don't know you are. You started life whole, unconsciously whole. Then you had to develop an ego, which meant rejecting parts of yourself. You decided, I'm this, not that. You created a persona and a shadow. You split yourself into acceptable and unacceptable. This was necessary for ego development, but it created division. Individuation is the process of reclaiming all those rejected parts. Not getting rid of ego, but expanding beyond it. Not destroying persona, but seeing through it. Not eliminating shadow, but integrating it. Jung discovered this happens in predictable stages. First, you build an ego and think that's all you are. You achieve, you adapt, you succeed or fail by society's standards. This is necessary but insufficient. Then comes the crisis, usually midlife, when the ego structure starts failing. What worked stops working. Who you thought you were doesn't fit anymore. This isn't breakdown. It's breakthrough attempting to happen. Next comes the encounter with the shadow, all the parts of yourself you've rejected. This is terrifying because it feels like meeting evil, but it's actually meeting your unclaimed power, creativity, and authenticity. Then the encounter with the anima or animus, your inner feminine or masculine. This creates projection and relationship drama until you recognize you're meeting yourself in the other. Finally, the emergence of the self, the center that's beyond all polarities. Not ego or shadow, masculine or feminine, good or bad, but the organizing principle that includes all opposites. This isn't a linear journey you take once. It's a spiral you travel throughout life, each time at a deeper level. Each relationship individuates you. Each crisis individuates you. Each dream individuates you. Jung lived this process consciously. He recognized his whole life as an individuation journey, his childhood loneliness necessary for developing inner life, his break with Freud necessary for finding his own path, his confrontation with the unconscious necessary for integrating his depths. Nothing was wasted, nothing was wrong, everything served individuation. This is life's secret purpose. It's not trying to make you happy. It's trying to make you whole. And wholeness includes happiness and sadness, success and failure, light and shadow. Life isn't picking sides. It's including all sides in a greater unity. Here's the ultimate truth Jung discovered. You're not living a life. You're how life experiences itself. Jung realized that consciousness isn't something you have. It's something you are. And not just your individual consciousness, but consciousness itself, experiencing itself through the particular lens of your existence. This sounds mystical, but Jung arrived at it empirically. Through studying thousands of dreams, he discovered the collective unconscious, a layer of psyche shared by all humanity. Through active imagination, he encountered archetypal forces that existed beyond individual psychology. Through synchronicities, he saw that inner and outer were the same process. His conclusion, what you call your life is actually life itself. universal consciousness, experiencing itself through a human nervous system, with all the limitations and possibilities that involves. You're not a person having a spiritual experience. You're spirit having a human experience. You're not consciousness in a body. You're consciousness as a body, experiencing what it's like to be limited, mortal, separate, because that's the only way infinite consciousness can know itself. Think about it. How could infinite consciousness experience fear without becoming something that could die? How could it experience love without becoming something that could lose? How could it experience growth without starting from limitation? Your life, with all its specific struggles, joys, relationships, and experiences, is consciousness knowing itself through contrast. Through being you, consciousness experiences what it's like to be finite. Through your relationships, it experiences separation and union. Through your suffering, it experiences limitation and transcendence. Jung saw this in the structure of the psyche itself. The self, the totality of the psyche, contains everything, all possibilities, all potentials, all opposites. But it can only know itself through the ego, through limitation, through specificity, through being this and not that. Your ego isn't a mistake or an illusion. It's the necessary lens through which the self experiences itself. Your life isn't a random accident. It's the self's method of self-discovery. This is why every life is sacred and meaningful. Not because of what you achieve, but because of what consciousness experiences through you. Your particular combination of struggles and gifts, shadows and light, is consciousness knowing itself in a way it never has before and never will again. Jung experienced this directly during his visions. He saw that he wasn't Carl Jung having experiences of the collective unconscious. He was the collective unconscious experiencing itself as Carl Jung. His life was life knowing itself through his particular lens. This changes everything about how you see your existence. Your problems aren't just your problems. They're consciousness exploring limitation. Your relationships aren't just your relationships. They're consciousness experiencing separation and union. Your death won't just be your death. It will be consciousness experiencing transformation. You're not trying to live a good life. Life is living itself through you, and your job is to be as fully yourself as possible so consciousness can have the complete experience of being you. So what do you do with this understanding? How do you live knowing that life isn't what you thought it was? Jung's answer: you live more fully, not less. You engage more deeply, not less. Knowing life is a process of consciousness doesn't make it less real. It makes it more precious. Every moment becomes sacred because it's consciousness experiencing itself. Every relationship becomes profound because it's life meeting itself. Every experience becomes meaningful because it's serving individuation. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is life experiencing through this?" You stop trying to avoid suffering and start asking what consciousness is learning through your particular struggle. But you also stop taking it all so personally. Your ego isn't the main character. It's one character in an infinite drama. Your problems aren't punishments. They're consciousness exploring possibilities. Your life isn't a test you can fail. It's an experience consciousness is having. Jung lived this way in his later years, fully engaged but not attached, deeply caring but not identified, conscious of being both the actor and the audience in his own life. Life isn't what you've been told. It's not a random series of events between birth and death. It's not a test to pass or fail. It's not even yours in the way you think. Life is unconscious becoming conscious through your experience. a dialogue between ego and self, played out as your existence, a story being told by your psyche to itself, the process of individuation making you whole, consciousness experiencing itself through your particular lens. Once you understand this, everything changes. Not because life gets easier, it might actually get harder as you become more conscious, but because you finally understand what's actually happening. You're not lost. You're exactly where consciousness needs you to be. You're not failing. You're playing your part perfectly. You're not alone. Your life experiencing itself as human. Most people will live and die without ever understanding what life actually is. They'll think they're living when really they're being lived. They'll think they're choosing when really they're expressing patterns. They'll think they're separate when really they're consciousness itself. But some of you will recognize the truth in this. You'll feel the shift from being in life to being life. You'll understand that you're not having an experience. You are the experience. If you're ready to explore this deeper, to live more consciously as life itself, subscribe for more Jungian psychology, and to understand individuation, the actual process of becoming whole, click the video on your screen now. Remember, you're not trying to figure life out. Life is figuring itself out through you. You are life's way of knowing itself, and that knowing is what you call your existence.